68 MPs have announced their intention to stand down at the next general election, many in their 30s and 40s. Tory MP William Ragg is one of them. He says it's down to mental and physical exhaustion. There he is. Quite a few people talking about burnout and just really had it up to here with being chased by cameras. The SNP MP Mary Black stepped down earlier in the year. There she is. She was the youngest, one of the youngest ever when she became an MP. She said it's because of the toxic culture in Westminster. Others said she was expected to lose her seat. So sometimes they use that as a cover story. I don't know in her case. MPs get an annual salary of over £86,000 a year. They can have second jobs and second homes. Their expenses are mainly paid by the taxpayer, but they're reporting that the demands of social media, the constant abuse, both in real life and online, is really, really tough for them. So are we asking too much from them? What do you think, Marina?
OK, so I think if you look at them, the majority of the MPs that are standing down, the vast majority are Tory MPs. And I don't think that's necessarily a case of exhaustion or whatever. I think it's that they know that their wipeout is coming their way and they're cowards, or they're facing sexual allegations or bullying allegations, and so they're standing down.
So I want to spend more time with my family means I'm going to lose my job next year.
I don't want to be there when I am nominated at the polls, at the election, sorry. And the other thing I think we've got to say here is, right, I think Westminster is a toxic, exhausting and demoralising place, probably for people who actually care, who want to do their jobs properly. But for the people who don't, it is a gravy train jolly. Look at Nadine Dorries, for example. Do you know how many times Nadine Dorries has spoken in Parliament in the last year? 0. Do you know how many parliamentary votes Boris Johnson has missed? 187 parliamentary votes, while they still both claim their 80k plus MP salary. Boris Johnson's off, touring the world, doing his speaking gigs, earning millions in Vegas. That's a great thing.
But in fairness, he has now stepped down as an MP,
fine,
right?
But this was all permitted. So I think basically we need massive reform. But I think what we're hearing now, I don't doubt that for people that really care, it's a hard job. But I think for the majority speaking and saying this sort of thing now, it's a cop-out. They are cowards.
Graham, because I'm looking at a whole list of people standing down. There's loads of them. Some of them say, I want to spend more time with my family. And in the back of their minds, they're thinking, I'm not going to win the seat. So that's a bit of an excuse. Others, and I think William Ragg, who I mentioned, I mean, to me, he says I was knackered. I was mentally, physically knackered. I think he's probably telling the truth there. I think some of them have really burnt out.
I think he's telling the truth that he's tired, but it comes with the job. You know what you're taking on when you become an MP. You know you're going to get tons of abuse. You know you're not going to please anybody. If you look through the list, the strange thing is the only people I believe have got genuine reasons for standing down are the very few Labour MPs at the bottom of the list. We've got over 60 Tory MPs, and it's the first time I'm going to agree with you, Marina. I think they're actually dodging a bullet. They're going to get out before they get thrown out.
So, you mentioned Labour. I mean, there's Harriet Harman, who's been there for years. She would win her seat if she stayed in there. Dame Margaret Hodge we're joined by in London. You're one of those standing down. I'm sure it's not because you think you would have lost your seat, Margaret, but you must see a lot of stress around you.
I heard what Marina said, and I don't really agree with it. I agree with what Graham said. It is a hard job, but it's an incredibly privileged job. It's more of a sort of vocation than a career. I've been in politics for a very, very long time, and I went in because I'd had that, passion for public services. And I've been able to help people. I've been able to change the world a little bit to make it a better place. And I've been really privileged to have access to people, events, and things that I'd never dreamt as a young person would come my way. So there are some bad apples, Marina, and you pick two of the worst probably in Nadine and Boris Johnson. But for a lot of people, it is a vocation. It is a sort of vocation. And I think it's an incredibly privileged way. I feel I've had a really privileged career in politics, and I'm proud of it.
You probably, I guess, came into the Commons a bit later than some do, Margaret, which might well be an advantage. But I wonder whether even in the time you've been there, you've seen the way people interact change. And I'm thinking particularly of abuse on social media.
Yeah, I mean, again, because, I started off life in local government in the 70s, and I got my first death threat, I think, in the late 70s. But it was a very different event. I mean, I remember at the time I'd given up smoking, and my response to it was to start smoking again. Thank goodness I gave it up again soon after that. But it was a policeman coming to the door and telling me there's somebody who's after you with a machete. Now, the advent of social media has really changed things. And just to give you one instance, was when I was fighting the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and there was a period of 2 months between the publication of the EHRC report on which found that there was anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and Jeremy Corbyn being told he was no longer a member of the Parliamentary Labour Party, where I got 90,000 in 2 months, social media mentions, most of which were hostile. I don't look at them. There's a wonderful organisation called the Community Security Trust that helped me deal with all of that. But that's one of the tough challenges. And one of the things I sort of learned early on, actually, was if you can't realise that the people who attack you, it's not the real you they're attacking. It's what it's who you are, what you stand for at that moment in their lives. You've got to be able to sort of, manage not to see that as part of the real you and your real life. You've just got to create a division between those two experiences. But social media is something that wasn't around when I came in and is pretty horrible.
Marina, maybe we need to make allowances for this because it has changed their jobs, hasn't it?
Make allowances, but this is a shame. I feel for anyone that gets like massively targeted and piled on. But I feel like the reason it's so volatile at the moment is because there's a lot of anger out there. So there is a lot of anger directed. But to say that we're expecting too much from our MPs as a result of that, I don't think is fair. Just quickly, just a quick point. Mhairi Black, who did stand down, talked about how, she was expected to travel down from Scotland to vote. During COVID, they brought in remote voting, which worked a treat. And because Westminster is such an anachronism, they then stopped it. And it's just an unnecessary demand. It doesn't keep up. It needs to be modernised. It needs to be better for working parents as well to be able to serve in Parliament.
Well, let me before we let you go, Margaret, on that point, what about just saying, look, do the whole thing on Zoom?
I think, it was an absolute joy to be able to vote on Zoom. And the other night when we had 18 votes, which took I don't know how many hours on the immigration bill, you really felt this was not the best way of spending our time. There is only one argument against that, Jeremy, is that when you do go in to vote, it's quite a lonely life. It can be quite a lonely life being an MP. You're very much, you do your own thing in your own space. And one of the good things about voting is that it brings you together with your colleagues, so you can talk to people about issues that you want to discuss with them. But I do agree with Marina that the modernisation and certainly the voting system is crackers at the moment. It's much better than it was when I first came in, and certainly when Harriet Harman, who came in 10 years before I did, she was there till 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and we now, on the whole, finish at a more reasonable hour. And I also agree that those people who've got seats outside London, coming to London for 3 or 4 nights a week, leaving your family and your home, and then going back when you may have really difficult stuff that you've got to deal with in your constituency, can be challenging. And you can see why people at sort of earlier stages of their life want to do something else. They want to get their life back. I get that. But we do want young people in Parliament as well. I think that's a benefit, because you want Parliament, you want your MPs to reflect society, and that means young and old, men and women, every ethnicity, everything like that. You do want proper representation.
Thanks so much, Dame Margaret Hodge, and good luck in your post-parliamentary life, Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz is in Wiltshire. Liz, do you think we expect too much of our MPs?
No, I don't, Jeremy, actually. I think they're heavily rewarded once they get successful into government. Absolutely, if you're passionate about your job, you give a lot of yourself. I'm an NHS nurse of 35 years. I know all about burnout, and there's no reward for us at the end of that other than our human reward, which takes its toll. And I've got a lot of sympathy for Mhairi Black, who I have a lot of respect for. And I think she was talking more about a toxic culture, which is another reason why I think she left. And I don't blame her.
Yeah, I was confused by that. I mean, somebody did say to me that her seat will be under pressure, but that may not be the reason. If it is the case that a young woman like Mhairi, who became an MP at the age of 20, it finds that this mainly male environment is horrid, that's the problem, Graham, isn't it?
It is, but I think we also should legislate to make it a criminal offence to send abuse over Twitter. If you're threatening somebody over Twitter, it should be a criminal offence. It's just.
But it already is. It already is. It's just that it's unenforceable.
But it should be enforced.
Because there's so much of it. Yeah, but what if it bounces via some sort of website in Russia? There's a lot of bots. Social media is a real problem for these guys. But maybe should they just ignore it?
No, I was going to go back to the point about Westminster just being really toxic and misogynistic, and it is. If you think about the fact that we've got known sexual predators being promoted, being protected, we've got this boys' club, the whipping system. Even just yesterday, did you see the brouhaha about the committee? So it's a Conservative committee, and Sunak allegedly. According to the Express, I never.
Oh God! Now what are you going to say?
No, there's actually a clip of it. It's there is a committee on Brexit, and quite a few Brexiteers within the committee were going to vote against parts of the Windsor Framework, Rishi's Windsor Framework, and so Sunak has sacked them from the committee so that the vote goes through, and there's been a whole brouhaha about it. Anyway, the point being, it's toxic. You can't go in
politics.
there and
politics.
That's not politics.
That's politics,
what happened to parliamentary sovereignty?
No, well,
Have you seen the thick of it?
Okay.
That's what it's all about.
John in another Wiltshire. We're focusing on Wiltshire today. John in Wiltshire.
Yeah, hello there.
What do you think? Do you think that the MPs are just their sacrifices are not regarded properly?
No, I don't. I don't see them sacrificing anything. They stood for Parliament. We voted for them to put our views forward and look after our interests. They don't. They get up there, and 2/3 of them are only looking to either promote themselves up or get their noses in the trough on the money train. They don't care about their constituents. And you can see it every day.
There are a couple of examples. That Matt Hancock going on I'm a Celeb, he's been suspended, probably shouldn't have done that. And that fellow, Geoffrey Cox, who turned out to be working as a lawyer in the Caribbean during lockdown, was a bit bizarre. I think he actually at some point went out there. But then, he's got a job. But then he's got another job as well.
But
Thank you, John.
John's right. John is right.
Is he though? Because I'm going the other way now.
No, because you've got people that really, really care and they work their guts out, and you've got the people that don't at all. And sadly, you've got a system that has both in there.
But he's right on one point, that we elect these people, they promise us the world, they say they're going to do this and change and make great things, and when they get into Parliament, they fall in line with the whips. And they do exactly what the whips tell them to do. And
that's why we need political reform. I think the whole whipping system is ridiculous.
Well, I suppose, God, there's so much to get through here, isn't there?